Chapter 4 Smile. G'day everyone, Rune here, and this is Chapter 4 of my What If Light Became a Nobody series. If you're new to this series, click the link in the description below to be taken to the playlist. Now let's begin the next chapter. Days have passed since Roxas fell into a deep sleep. 14 to be exact. And in that time, Tilks has been sent on several missions with other members of the organization. Primarily Zoldan and Vexen, members that he hadn't been on missions with until now. And if he were to be completely honest, he'd prefer it if he never went on a mission with either of them again. Zoldan gives Tilks an unsettling feeling, even worse than Sykes does. Any mission he has with Vexen quickly becomes an experiment for Vexen to test just how far Tilks can push his powers. These missions always leave Tilks too exhausted to even go to Twilight Town to have ice cream with Shion. The last 14 days have been, for lack of a better term, utterly miserable. The only silver lining being when he gets to sit on the clock tower with Shion and either eat ice cream or help each other with their new hobbies of shell jewelry and sealing flowers and resin. The latter activity makes Tilks very glad for his new summon. Usually, sealing a flower and resin can take a week to do properly, if not longer, but with his Kronos Glass summon, he can skip all the waiting time. It certainly makes what he does with the flowers much easier. Ever since the first day of Roxas being asleep, Tilks and Shion have been visiting the boy's room and giving him whatever they made that day. There's now a small pile of perfectly preserved flowers and brightly coloured shell jewelry next to his pillow. Like every day before, Tilks walks into Roxas's room, hoping to find the blonde awake. That hope is quickly squashed, however, when he looks at the bed. Roxas hasn't moved an inch. It's a strange thing, feeling things like hope and disappointment when you, by your very nature, should be completely incapable of it. He had tried to talk to Shion about it, but Sykes, who had overheard them, had told them to stop letting echoes distract them. He had then proceeded to lecture them about how nobodies don't have hearts to feel with and that all they're feeling are the echoes of what they once had. Tilks thought that hadn't sounded quite right, but he wasn't about to argue with the man. Heaving a sigh, he walks over to the bed, placing the newly frozen peony next to the others. Sitting on the bed, he has to resist the urge to curl into a ball as he starts to tell Roxas about the mission he had just been on with Vexen. It was to a world that seemed to resemble 4th century China, and they were there gathering gunpowder and fire crystals for Vexen's research. Why he needs explosives, Tilks doesn't know, and he doesn't think he wants to. He vents to the unconscious Roxas, telling him about how confusing the whole no feelings thing is when he keeps getting odd spikes of emotion, and lately they've mostly been negative. He hates going on missions with Vexen and Zoldan. He wants to go on missions with him and Shion again. He'll even take Demix at this point. Sure, the last time they worked together, Tilks had ended up doing all of the work, but at least the guy is nice and doesn't make Tilks feel uncomfortable. Heaving a sigh, he stands up. Turning slightly, he looks at Roxas over his shoulder. I'll see you tomorrow, if I don't get stuck with Vexen again. The next day, Tilks enters the mission room and silently walks up to Sykes, fully expecting to be given a mission with Zoldan. Only for a very annoyed-looking Sykes to tell him that he's being teamed up with Demix today. He's been requesting you as a teammate for weeks. Tilks turns to see Sykes walking up to him, a big grin on his face. The older teen tells Sykes that Tilks has grown on him. Sykes gives him a flat look, clearly wanting to say something to that. However, he simply turns and opens a portal, seeming to decide that what he was going to say isn't worth it. Once they're on the other side, Tilks tugs on Demix's sleeve, cutting off whatever he was about to say. In a small voice, Tilks thanks him for asking to be teamed up with him. He doesn't want to work with Zoldan or Vexen, but he also doesn't want to be alone right now either. Demix looks down at his junior in surprise before looking away with a grimace. The kid is looking at him like a kicked puppy. Hastily, he suggests that they get to work on their mission. The sooner they get it done, the sooner they can slack off. He relaxes slightly as his comment manages to get a half laugh out of Tilks, and they head off along the beach that they found themselves on. As they walk, with Tilks making a small commentary about the area, Demix watches them curiously. He's heard the others talking about how depressed Tilks has been acting since Roxas fell into this weird never-ending sleep. They were all talking about how the kid needs to stop playing pretend with having emotions. That he needs to grow up and do as he is told. But this doesn't seem fake to him. He must have some strong emotional memory because he seems genuinely upset. And for some reason, that doesn't sit right with him. He's like, what, 14 give or take? No kid that young should be looking like you just told them their dog died. That's just a big fat nope. There has to be something to cheer the kid up. He said that he doesn't like working with Zoldan and Vexen. Understandable, those two aren't the easiest to get along with. But he also doesn't want to be alone. So, no solo missions. Demyx could keep requesting missions with the squirt, but there's only so long he can keep that up before Sykes and Xemnas decide he's not doing enough work and assign Tilks to another member again. He's snapped out of his thoughts when Tilks suddenly kneels down and starts rummaging through the sand, coming away with several brightly coloured seashells. Face unusually soft, the younger wonders out loud if Shion will like them. With care and a critical eye, he examines each seashell, placing the best ones in his pocket while tossing the others back into the sand. Of course! Shion! Tilks is always following the girl around like a baby chick when they're at the castle. When was the last time they went on a mission together? Before Roxas decided to take a 2-week nap, he thinks. If anything can cheer Tilks up, it'll be that. Now the question is how to pull it off. Demyx continues to mull this over for the rest of the mission, only getting distracted when they notice snow falling. Utterly baffled, they start to look for what could be causing this, eventually leading them to watching a reunion between a small girl and 2 odd creatures. One blue and kind of looking like a dog, and the other white looking like it's made out of ice. Listening in, it sounds like the icy one, who the girl called Slushy, got kidnapped. Feeling strangely awkward at witnessing the scene, Tilks suggests they head back. Nodding in agreement, Demyx begins to lead Tilks back towards the portal. Despite his awkwardness, however, Tilks can't help but look back one last time. As they walk back to the portal, Tilks spots a 3-foot shrub covered in flowers and stops. Kneeling next to the shrub, he examines the flowers, which are white and growing in clusters of about 5 to 6. Carefully, he picks a cluster from the shrub before turning to walk over to Demyx, who's watching him in complete bewilderment. Tilks gives him a flat look. You have your sitar, Shion has seashells, I have flowers. Demyx shrugs and lets the matter go. Everyone needs a hobby, he guesses. Tilks sighs as he steps into the mission room. It's been 22 days, almost a month since Roxas fell into a coma. He doesn't care what anyone else says, this is a coma. And he's sick and tired of everyone in this stupid maze castle telling him how to feel about it. They're not him, what gives them the right to dictate his thoughts and feelings? The only ones that haven't told him to, quote, stop acting like a child are Shion and Demyx. He just wants Roxas to wake up and for this whole thing to be over already. Heaving a sigh, he looks up to see Shion standing next to Sykes and smiling at him. Blinking in surprise, he quickly walks up to them, before giving Sykes a questioning look. Sykes scowls down at them before explaining that Tilks and Shion are going to be going on a mission together today. Tilks' eyes widen slightly in surprise before he nods in understanding, not letting on to the bubbly feeling growing in his chest. He only half listens to Sykes' explanation of their mission as he tries not to fidget with impatience, wanting to get out of the castle right this second. Finally, Sykes opens the portal for Tilks and Shion and the two go through. The moment the two are on the other side, Tilks throws his arms around Shion in a hug, startling her. She stands frozen for a moment in shock, having never seen Tilks hug anyone or having been hugged herself. But then, she gently returns it, telling Tilks that she missed him too. Later that day, after their mission, rather than going straight back to the castle, they decide to go to their spot in Twilight Town. After getting their usual sea salt ice cream, they climb the clock tower like always. But when they turn the corner to the ledge where they sit, they stop in their tracks. For there, both hands on the brick half-wall surrounding the ledge, is Roxas. Tilks doesn't even notice that he's dropped his ice cream, as he runs headlong towards the blonde. Throwing his arms around him, the speed of his approach combined with his weight sends them both sprawling to the ground. Tilks keeps his arms wrapped around Roxas's torso as he hugs him tightly and his face buried in his chest. Behind him, he can hear Shion's footsteps approaching as she tells Roxas that Tilks has been worried about him. Roxas gives a huff of laughter as he pats the younger boy's head, telling him that everything is fine now so he can stop trying to squeeze the life out of him. Tilks gives a responding huff before pulling back to face the other two. Shion and Roxas stare in surprise at what they see on Tilks' face. It's not his usual blank, apathetic expression or the sad, despondent one that he's been wearing lately. Instead, his lips are curled up ever so slightly in a small, shy smile, and his eyes almost seem to glow with joy and relief. Welcome back. We missed you. Recovering from the surprise of seeing Tilks smile, Roxas ruffles his hair, telling him it's good to be back. A little later, after Roxas had gone to get himself and Tilks some ice cream to replace the one Tilks dropped, they're all sitting at their usual spot, enjoying the comfortable silence as the sun paints the sky in oranges and reds. Tilks is the first to break the silence, making a joke about having discovered the cure to zombification. Confused, Tilks and Shion turn to him, asking just what he's going on about. Tilks tells them that when he woke up, he was kind of feeling like a zombie and had come up here to clear his head. He was still feeling out of it when they arrived, but the moment Tilks hugged him, the feeling stopped. So, they have found the cure to zombification! Tilks hugs! Shion laughs before turning to the younger boy, suggesting that they go find a zombie world so Tilks can really test his power. Tilks tilts his head in confusion, saying that it's not much of a cure. After all, if he has to get close enough to hug the zombie, that means he's also close enough to get bitten. And Roxas said that he was feeling like a zombie, he hadn't become a brain-eating monster yet. So, if anything, his hugs are more of a preventative, able to stop the process, but useless if the zombification is complete. Tilks sighs and is about to tell Tilks that he was only joking when he sees the twitch of the younger boy's lips. Roxas gapes as he realizes that the usually stoic teen is messing with them, before shooting him a playful glare. Turning to Shion, he tells her to mess up Tilks' hair for him, as he can't reach. Tilks leans away from Shion's approaching hand, telling her no. However, with there being a limit as to how far he can lean away with falling off the tower, Shion does manage to bury her hand into his hair and thoroughly mess it up. Tilks gives an indignant squawk as he starts trying to fix it without getting any of his ice cream in it. From there, they fall back into silence until Roxas asks if Shion and Tilks are the ones that were leaving those seashells and flowers next to his pillow. Shion confirms, explaining that she's been collecting seashells to turn into accessories on every mission, and Tilks has been doing the same with flowers. Tilks has even been looking up the language of flowers. She then reaches into her pocket and pulls out the shell that she'd found on their mission, handing it to Roxas and telling him to hold it up to his ear. Roxas does so, and the sound of waves fill the soft silence. Later that night, Tilks sits in his room, summoning and desummoning his window as he struggles to get to sleep, until his eye catches on something on his window. Something that wasn't there before. There are 2 new images on his window, but they're not in line with his other summons. They're not even heartless or anything like that. Slotted into the circular segments of one of the nobody symbols are the images of Roxas and Shion. And that, everyone, is where I'm going to leave the story for now. Join me next time as Tilks is sent on his very first solo mission. I'm Rune. See you next chapter.